7 years on, Company of Heroes remains one of the best real-time strategy games on the market. The general design worked so well in the original that it's perhaps not surprising that developer Relic Entertainment hasn't changed too much in setting up the sequel. Company of Heroes 2 once again places an emphasis on tactical bloodletting over tedious resource management, but forges a new identity by shifting the setting from the overly familiar vistas of the Western Front to the horrors of Hitler's campaign into Russia. Switching theaters is a smart, if not exactly novel tactic among World War II games, but it's no easy feat to align the player's interests with an army that many modern onlookers regard as merely the lesser of two evils. Relic's attempts feel forced at best. You'll see the campaign is recollected by former Soviet Lieutenant Lev Isakovich, facing interrogation in the gulags after expressing his beef with Stalin's harsh regime. Unfortunately, poor voice acting and poor 3D animation keep this narrative from living up to its potential. When Isakovich learns of the infamous Soviet order to gun down fleeing friendly troops, for instance, the cumulative deficiencies of the cinematics combine to make the tragic scene feel almost laughable. At its worst, the story's simply dull.
Lev Isakovich.
Блядь, сукин сын!
I come all the way from Moscow to this remote pisshole, and this is how you greet your old commanding officer?
Impressively, the geographical setting itself makes up for many of these shortcomings. Company of Heroes 2 takes place in the frozen winter wastelands of the Soviet Union, where snowstorms can slow your infantry to a crawl or even kill them if you're not careful. The energy and terror of total war is palpable, with explosions and gunfire sounding almost as if they were actually recorded on a battlefield. The concerted effort to depict these harsh battlefields gives a fresh feeling to familiar situations like huddling in blast craters or demolishing buildings full of enemy troops.
Engineers move out. Enemy squad has us sighted!
Even the campaign pummels you with the dismal realities of the Soviet situation early in the war, placing you not on the offensive, but rather in full retreat during Operation Barbarossa. The Soviets lost around 26 million people in the war, military and civilian, and Company of Heroes drives this statistic home with brutal tactics that would be dubbed unrealistic in other strategy titles. This is most apparent in the use of conscripts, who require almost no resources to produce and can be repeatedly deployed between short delays. Many of the campaign's 14 missions seem to hinge on little more than strategically throwing untrained soldiers to their deaths in order to hold the line, and true to history, the officers back at the base will shoot them down if they try to retreat.
Retreat! Fall back!
By orders of Comrade Stalin, all who retreat are traitors to the motherland! Turn back and fight, damn you! Fire!
Such wanton waste may be accurate, but it's unfulfilling. The campaign's best moments reveal themselves in the more tightly controlled scenarios, such as when you capture a German tank with limited resources, or when you patrol through a Polish forest, smartly eliminating German squads with synchronized gunfire. It's also extremely satisfying when the elements of nature are put to good use. So it's a shame that only a thimbleful of the campaign's 13 or so hours are spent engaging in wintry warfare tactics. All too rarely, for instance, does Company of Heroes 2's campaign let you enjoy blowing a hole through the sheet of frozen ice covering a river in order to stop enemy troops from moving across it. You can, however, make your own strategic fun in the multiplayer option, supporting up to 4 players on each side and arguably even livelier than the pitched online battles in the original game. The weather options add welcome depth to the combat, forcing you to learn how to keep your troops alive in a snowstorm, in addition to overpowering the enemy. Since you're given the opportunity to play as the German army in multiplayer, leveraging their superior firepower and war machinery might make you wish the game offered a few campaign missions from their point of view. There are some balance issues, but Relic's history suggests they have the competence to address them after launch.
We got it!
Surprisingly, Company of Heroes 2 finds its true vitality outside its standard multiplayer setup. With its latest release, Relic introduced a middle-of-the-road gameplay option called the Theater of War, which allows you to tackle specialized scenarios such as defending a base from German hordes either alone or with a friend via cooperative play. It's easily Company of Heroes 2's best feature, particularly since a blank slate allows Relic to create fun and challenging skirmishes without being hamstrung by historical accuracy. There's simply so much here, with individual scenarios far outnumbering the missions in the campaign, that it might just be the game's most valuable addition as a sequel.
Light them up!
Still, for all of its successes, Company of Heroes 2 is a game that adheres firmly to the traditions that served it so well 7 years ago, even if they seem out of place now. The cluttered UI, for instance, takes up far too much real estate on the screen, which becomes all too noticeable when you have a full army of 135 units on the field, usually spread across 2 fronts. The AI refuses to cooperate at times, and pathfinding issues occasionally make directing tanks more of a chore than it needs to be. Company of Heroes 2 isn't quite a perfectly oiled war machine, but it's a highly effective one, particularly in light of the many rewarding gameplay features brought to bear in its different modes of play. This is a sequel that's more about refinement than innovation, and elements such as the weather effects and the robust theater of war serve to make an already great franchise just a tad greater. A heavy reliance on the past keeps it from earning the legendary status of its predecessor, but appropriately, Company of Heroes 2 marks a dogged victory for Relic. These guys have clearly been fighting the good fight.
Ich kapituliere!
Hold up, man.
Ich kapituliere!
Careful.
Bitte, bitte! Gnade zeigen! Bitte!
See all of our shows and game reviews now on the brand new GT app on Xbox Live, and the GT Originals iOS app too.